Hey everyone, and happy Friday to those listening on a Friday because it's Friday
Oh
when you're
yeah.
listening to this. And welcome
Uh-huh.
back to another episode of 90s Crime Talk with Stef, a show that
Wow.
is a mere tree branch of our tree, the
Hmm.
Totally 90s podcast.
Man, it's a it's a crickety crackety tree
It
branch because
sure is. It's a
man,
redwood.
it is, but you know what? It is fire. And that's not really a good
Not,
analogy.
no, we don't, it's
Not with
not
trees.
kindling, but it is a tree.
Yes, it
And,
is.
I'm proud to be a branch on that tree. So I am Steph, for those of
Yes.
you that don't recognize my deep falsetto voice. And I'm joined by my amazing and stunning and absolutely enchanting bestie,
Oh,
Neen.
stop. Oh my
Neen.
gosh. No, I think you're talking about yourself. You're amazing. Oh my gosh. No, I'm so excited, Steph.
How are you?
Oh, I'm good. It's been a great day. It's actually Friday for everybody listening, but it's Wednesday when we're recording. It's Tony, my husband's birthday today. So
Happy
happy
birthday to
birthday.
Tony.
Yeah, it was just like such a nice day. It was like, I like when things go, you know what I
Smoothly.
love? And I love celebrating other people.
Mhm.
You know, I'm not big on my birthdays. Like it's
I
okay,
know. I
but
don't know
it's just,
why. I'm
yeah,
big
I
on
don't
your
know.
birthday. I
I
love,
know.
but I get it
It's
because I love celebrating other. I'm so excited. I'm like, yay, like,
yeah.
you excited, yeah.
Exactly. It just makes my heart so warm. So it's
Well,
just
let me ask you, what do you do when people sing happy birthday to you? Do you cringe? Do you look at the
yes.
wall? Okay, so I do too, but
Hmm.
I love celebrating my birthday, but I cringe at that. I dread that. And I also am like Pretzel. I think we talked about this a few
Hmm.
episodes back where when she was, celebrating her birthday, she's like, this is the last time I'm gonna say goodnight to you before, my birthday.
Hmm.
I do that too. But as
No.
I'm getting older, it's great and everything, but I'm also like, oh my God, I'm getting older. So like
Yeah.
now I'm like kind of, you
You could
know,
see where people kind of dread going to the next year.
yeah.
Yeah, I know. I'm telling you, I was in the shower the other day and I literally had to write on my shower wall, like subtract because I thought I was 42 already.
Oh my God.
I'm like, once you hit a certain age, I feel like I can't really keep track of how old I am anymore. It's so
I know.
stupid.
I know, but I'm excited about this year because we're turning 42 and I love even numbers. So I'm
Hmm.
excited. I feel like
Yeah.
41, but 42 sounds
Mhm.
cool.
Yeah, even numbers I'm down with, right?
Yeah.
I don't know,
Yeah.
something about odd numbers just kind of like
It's like
blah.
bad luck. I don't know
Like
why.
47, I don't like the ring of
I
that.
don't, even though I love the number seven, but
Yeah, same
that's
here. I'm just
too
like,
close to 50.
yeah,
Oh,
right. Okay, we have a more than 5 years before then, so we're still
neat.
on the
But
side.
look how fast this freaking year flew. I'm sorry, we sound
Did.
like broken records, but this year flew. I think you all can agree.
Yes, I swear, if we're not talking about how fast it went or allergy
I
issues,
know.
that's our niche.
It is.
That's another tree branch of ours,
It
people.
totally is. It's a flower in
I'm
the
like,
garden that is the Totally 90s podcast.
yes. I swear,
Jesus.
but you know what? I hate being sang to. I've always hated people singing to me. It's just like because I don't know what to do. If I should laugh, if I should cry, if I should just like I'm like a deer in headlights,
Yeah. And
you know?
remember, was it Chevys that would make you wear the sombrero?
Mm.
And then everyone, happy birthday. Oh my
Oh
God.
no. Mm-mm. Or you get those friends
Oh,
that think it's funny to do that to you when it's not your birthday. It's like I'm
uh,
tired already.
I am napping on the couch right now. Who the hell does that? Did I? Please tell me I
Right.
never did
No,
that
you
crap.
didn't.
Thank you.
No, but I've heard many stories of people that do that, and I'm just like, I would disown you
I
as a
would too.
friend.
I would walk away and never look
Ugh.
back. My
But I
God.
think they did that enough to where they were starting to like check IDs, which I
Yeah,
love.
because
It's
it's free
totally modded.
Sunday.
Yes, right.
Oh my God. That's where my fake ID got taken away from me was at a Chevy's. So I got a
No
fake
way, really?
ID when I was 18 in the Mish, of
Uh-huh.
course.
I
And
remember when you
yes.
wanted to get one.
Yeah, and I
Someone
took
in school was the one coordinating this, wasn't
yes.
it?
I think. I don't
Yeah.
know. Yeah, probably that tracks. But
Hmm.
I got my ID for $100
Mhm.
and I took my photo at Doré Studio, which is where my
Mhm.
mother took her high school graduation portraits back in the 70s. So it was around doing
Uh-huh.
backdoor fake ID photos. But
Mhm.
like I used it and it worked. It looked really real. And then I
Wow.
decided to like try my luck at a Chevy's to get a margarita, I guess. They took that from me and kept it. I was like, oh my God. And then they wrote it in a book. I was so embarrassed. I didn't go to Chevy's for like 5 years after that. I was so scared.
No way,
Yeah.
really?
I thought I was gonna go to jail or
Shoot,
juvie.
holy crap.
You just
That's
totally
so embarrassing.
I had not thought about that until now.
I had never heard that story.
Oh my God.
That is
It
traumatizing.
is. It was.
Because I
And I
mean,
think,
I worry like if I like for little things, even now, Tony always calls me like a goody two shoes. Like if I don't pay for like the plastic bags at a store,
oh,
like I only punch two, but Tony grabs a third. I'm like,
yeah.
why did
Yeah.
you? You
Meanwhile, I
know?
put zero for like five. Sorry, Target. What? They're making enough money off of me.
Well, I get so panicky, like they're gonna arrest me. And Tony's like, "Ugh, live a little,
I know.
right? So I couldn't even imagine what would happen to me if that happened. Oh my God, you're a man, you're a beast. You're just like,
Oh,
bam, yeah, I want to give me a margarita.
the nerve.
And
My
they're like, nah,
God.
honey.
Yeah, like snatch.
Oh gosh, that
Come
is
back in 3 years.
fantastic. Hey, I have a quick question before we roll into this.
Okay, what is it?
Ariana Grande.
Oh,
Can
yeah. I'm
I just say something real
disappointed.
quick?
Say it.
So I know we had mentioned that I think in Fridays with Neen about maybe we did. I know we talked about it. I think I don't even know if it was on the air, but how she broke up with her husband. I think we did talk about it. But then, am I reading things correctly that that guy with the reddish hair,
Yeah.
she had an affair with him? Or
So the guy that plays SpongeBob on Broadway, not to be
mm-hmm.
mistaken with the guy that voices the cartoon
Uh-huh.
SpongeBob, because that guy's wife is like, it's not him. So
Mm-hmm.
like this red-haired geeky little boy,
Mm-hmm.
I guess they met on the set of Wicked and became friends. She was
Mm-hmm.
married. He's married. He and his wife just welcomed their first baby
Yeah, that's
literally a few months ago. And he was like, my wife, la la la, I love you. Okay, blah, 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 blah. Yeah. So they are together and everyone's calling her a homewrecker because it's not really, I mean, rumors, okay, because people have
right.
disputed it, not her, but people around
Mm-hmm.
her have disputed it, that she's broken up relationships before, like Pete
Mm-hmm.
Davidson and what's that guy, the Big Sean.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Uh yeah, Big
Yes.
Sean, right?
And then
Mhm.
and then that she like was found like cuddling Big Sean on the couch and Naya Rivera walks in and catches him. Naya Rivera herself said, no, that never happened. We were
Mhm.
already like they were just writing a song, blah. And then
Right.
Pete Davidson's ex was like, no, we had already broken up. So technically she's not a homewrecker, but so many people have come and said the
Mhm.
opposite. Like, no, she is. And
Mhm.
today he filed for divorce from his wife, the woman who has had his back for I think 10 years, who was
Wow.
blindsided by all of this. The
Mm.
woman who like has just been in his corner. He like disses her for Ariana Grande, who I don't think this will last because she gets bored. She
Yeah,
wrote the
she's
song "Break Up with Your Girlfriend" because I'm bored for a reason. Break up with your girlfriend.
Oh yeah.
Move
Is that what she
on.
says?
Yeah.
I had no clue she said that.
So I love Ariana Grande, so I'm very upset about all of this, but that latest news kind of makes me feel icky. And so I'm just
Mhm.
gonna have to refrain from proclaiming my love for her right now.
Yeah,
And
because I
he's
mean
gross
we're
to me.
yeah, oh completely. He looks
He just looks like a
like a slime
sniveling
ball.
little geek. Like he
Yeah,
can't
he
believe he got her.
yes, and that's what I'm thinking is that, oh, okay, I'm gonna run with this because,
Mhm.
it's Ariana Grande.
Oh God,
I
I know.
just have, Betty Homemaker at home, just like chilling with my newborn and
Uh-huh.
it's okay. He'll have Ariana Grande as a stepmom.
For
you
just
know?
a minute.
Exactly. I was like, what? And but I have read stuff about her, and she's really, her name's being dragged through the mud left and right
Oh
about
yeah.
just her reputation. And she's already had some things about her attitude already where it just doesn't, I don't know. And I mean, and I like her music, I like her voice, I think, but at the same time, like, you got to be careful with how you, I don't know. She's one of those people that it reminds me of, like, she gets involved with a person in like an acting role, or and all of a sudden sparks fly, and I think that's, like, I don't want to say it's normal, but we saw that with Angelina Jolie and Brad Pitt,
Mm-hmm.
like there's some people too that just fall really hard, or like easily fall in and out of love, or they like to be romanced and have that whole chase, and that might just be her thing. But I'm like, gosh, she could have picked a better like, if you're gonna take that chance or do that, like, and I guess the thing that I was thinking of is, like, maybe what if she really didn't think of it to be that serious, and here he is risking everything.
Why would he though?
Yeah.
If
Uh,
she wasn't like singing sweet nothings in his ear.
wow. Yeah,
I
that's
mean, I say I'm
that's a tough
not gonna
one.
like pay attention, but I am.
Hmm.
I'm watching this
Yeah.
train wreck.
Yeah, for real, you can't help but judge, right?
I'm judging. I'm judging hard.
I hope the best for them all, and I'm praying for his wife, because
You
that's
know,
sad.
actually, he did her a favor.
No, he did.
So goodbye. And she's
Hmm.
going to upgrade when he tries to come running back.
Oh, for
Bye.
sure, because he will be coming. He will be coming back, and I wouldn't be surprised if he's like, "I'm sorry, I made a mistake," and
Mm-hmm. Too
and
little,
just
too
slam the
late.
door on his nasty ass face. I'm sorry.
Yep.
Wow, scumbag. But anyways, that being said, Steph, what do you have in store for us tonight? I'm
Well.
excited just by hearing what it's called.
So now that you know how we always have to talk lightheartedly beforehand, guys. So we
Yes,
do to prime you for what's to come. And
exactly.
tonight's a doozy, okay?
Ugh.
I want to talk to you guys about a case that's always fascinated me and also has put the of God in me as well. And
Mm,
that is the case of the Gainesville Ripper.
mm,
Immediate
mm.
chills. Ripper?
Just
What?
anybody that says Ripper.
Yes.
Interesting. Does Ripper play a role? Like, that word, does it play a role in this?
Yes.
Interesting. Okay.
And I want to right now put into your head, keep in mind, what does this case remind me of? Okay.
Okay.
So just keep in mind, and then we'll revisit at the end.
Okay.
So this case took place primarily in Gainesville, Florida, about 33 years ago.
Hmm.
And our villain is Danny Rolling, who, if you look at a picture of him, he looks like your regular Joe Schmo,
Hmm.
but regular definitely isn't one of his qualities. He is vile, cruel, ruthless, and freaking evil. So before we jump into this case, I do want to warn you that it is tough. It's tough to listen to. So major trigger warnings for graphic and disturbing descriptions of violent crimes, including murder, as well as discussions of sexual assault. Okay.
Mm.
So, without
Wow.
further ado, let's meet Danny Rolling. Danny Rolling, come on down. So, Danny Rolling was born on May 26, 1954, in Shreveport, Louisiana. And to those of you who live in Shreveport, Louisiana, if I am mispronouncing that name wrong, I am so sorry. But I have a friend whose last name is Shreve, so that's why I'm
Hmm.
pronouncing it like that. So if it's Shrev, like I apologize. But he was born to parents James and Claudia Rolling and had a brother named Kevin.
Hmm.
Danny's father was a police officer and was unfortunately just a really bad man. He was abusive and he would regularly beat his wife and sons for the littlest things, for looking at him the wrong way, for putting a plate, down too loud, whatever. He
Hmm.
would just go off the handles. And I read somewhere that he apparently told Danny that he was unwanted from the moment he was born. And he
Oh God.
actually started physically abusing Danny when he was about 1 year old for not crawling properly. And when his little brother Kevin was born, the abuse got worse. So
Mm-mm.
that, coupled with the extreme abuse that he endured, not to mention the abuse he witnessed, makes me wonder, And I'm sure it makes you wonder if it had anything to do with how his mind would eventually work and the things that he would end up doing. I'm
Mm-hmm.
not excusing his future behavior at all. I'm just sharing a thought that crossed my mind when I read
Right.
about this.
Wow.
Um, Claudia, Danny's mother, tried to leave James a few times, but would always return home. Believe that when she left, she took her sons with her, but I couldn't find anything to confirm or deny that fact. When she would return, you can imagine the abuse that she endured.
Mm-hmm.
When Danny was about 11, she attempted suicide by slitting her wrists and was committed to a hospital. And around this time, Danny began to drink heavily and in secret to cope with his misery. So he was not even like, he was 11, he was a kid.
Yeah, I was gonna say, isn't he young?
Yeah, he was young.
Wow.
When Danny was 14 years old, he got caught peeping in his neighbor's window while watching a young girl inside getting undressed. When his father found out, Danny was, of course, severely beaten. When he was 15, he tried to end his life in the same way his mother had tried only 4 years earlier. Around this time, he started getting into trouble with the law and was arrested quite a few times for robberies. But after his run ins with the police, he sort of just stopped and tried to turn his life around and actually enlisted in the Air Force when he was about 17 years old. And he apparently did really well, like with regard to his coursework. But unfortunately, he was still drinking pretty heavily and actually started using drugs, including marijuana and LSD. So he was discharged as a result of his behavior. And after he was discharged from the Air Force in 1974, he went back to his hometown of Shreveport to start over and actually joined a Pentecostal church where he attended services regularly. And this is where he met a woman named O'Mather Halco. The two married that same year and welcomed their first child together, a daughter named Kylie. Unfortunately, this was not a happy union, with Danny still drinking and unable to keep a job. And he would often take his anger and frustrations out on his wife, much like his father did to his mother.
Wow.
Danny even threatened to kill her, which is when O'Mather decided that she had had enough. She was like, F this. She filed for divorce in 1977 after only 3 years of marriage.
Wow.
Danny did not take this good, which we will talk about in a little
Uh-huh.
bit. And one thing I wasn't able to find out if he maintained a relationship with his daughter anywhere online or if
Mm-hmm.
he had any more children after that. But when you hear about what he would go on to do, one can only hope that his daughter and any more kids he may have had absolutely nothing to do with him. So
Oh
I
my
think
gosh.
it was just the one kid, and I hope she was just like
Yeah,
far
sayonara.
away.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
exactly. Because that's awful. So, did he not want the divorce, or was it the
No,
fact it
it
was
was
just,
it was like the fact that it was like a rejection, and he had been rejected his whole life at
yeah,
this point. So it was like a
yeah.
blow.
It would have been different if he left her.
Exactly. So when Danny's wife left him, he sort of just became a drifter with no real place to call home. He went back to his criminal ways and started committing armed robberies, I guess, as a way to survive.
Mm-hmm.
And he was caught by cops after robbing a supermarket and was thrown in jail for about 6 or 7 years. While in jail, he passed the time lifting weights and got all big and buff.
Wow.
He was picked on quite a bit while in jail
Mm-hmm.
by the inmates, by the guards. So that was kind of like, flashbacks to his father and all the insults and stuff. So
Mm-hmm.
just to add to his mindset, okay? So when he was released a couple of years later, he hitchhiked around the country and would stay with relatives along his journey. In 1985, however, he was arrested again for trying to rob another supermarket and was sentenced to 4 years in jail. So bye bye. When he was released in 1988, he returned to Shreveport and moved back in with his parents, where he attempted again to get his life on track. He got a job at a restaurant, but was fired after only a few months on November 4th, 1989. This date is very important. Danny was pissed and threatened his manager with violence. And again, he's being rejected another time.
Yeah.
But
A
he didn't
pattern.
exactly. But as far as I could tell, he didn't act on the violence with his manager. He just kind of made threats, but then he
Mhm.
left. He did not go home and sulk, nor did he go to a bar and drown his sorrows. He took his anger out in a very different way. That same night, Danny committed his first murders, and it was violent to say the least. He broke into a house and murdered the family inside, which was 24-year-old Julie Grissom, her nephew, 8-year-old Sean, and her father, 55-year-old William. The family was attacked and brutally stabbed while preparing dinner. This was around 6 or 7 o'clock at night.
Oh my God. So he just rolled up to someone's house?
Mhm.
So this is just random, not even.
Well, so I'm gonna get to that because it
Mm,
kind of was and it kind of wasn't.
okay.
So William had when they were found, William had several stab wounds on his body, and Sean had been found with one knife wound to his back and out through its chest. So I guess that was like the fatal blow
Like
one.
crap. Mm-hmm.
Julie was found naked on her bed, stabbed at least 3 times. So there's a couple of things to note about Julie's attack. She had unfortunately been sexually assaulted. She was found naked. She was mutilated by whoever did this to her, and her body had been cleaned with vinegar. She had bite marks on her breasts, and her body had been positioned with her legs spread open. So whoever was going to walk in would find her in this sexually like explicit position. The
Mm.
next day, when Sean's mother couldn't get a hold of anyone to see how her son was, she called the police, who immediately went to the home where they discovered the 3 bodies. They were shocked, to say the least. This was a real quiet town where things like this didn't happen. They were also dumbfounded because even though this was a violent attack, the crime scene was clean. Like,
Mm-hmm.
like remove the bodies and you would think nothing had happened there. There was no evidence of a break-in. There was no robbery. The only thing that the police knew was that this was a work of a, quote, psychologically disturbed man who had experience with crime scenes. The cops worked the case nonstop, but they knew that it was going to take some time before they would be able to find the crazed person responsible for this. And I can imagine that the poor residents of the neighborhood lived in fear while they waited. My ass would have moved.
That's for sure. You're right. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Sad.
Now, to
That
answer
would
your
not give them even a. Wow. Okay. Mm-hmm.
like it would, those cartoons where like there's dust when when someone runs off. It
Yeah.
would have been me. I would have Speedy Gonzalez my ass on out
Yeah,
of
and all
that
you see are
town.
like leaves.
Exactly. But to answer your question, this murder was not random. It was his first, but he didn't just willy-nilly go into any old house. He had been stalking Julie just for a couple days and liked what he saw. He started fantasizing about
Mm.
her, and that night, fueled with anger at being fired, he unleashed his rage while fulfilling his selfish desires onto Julie. Sadly, this was his first murder, but it would not be his last. Okay. So,
Wow.
so as I mentioned, Danny lived with his parents, which was
Mm-hmm.
probably not the best idea given the relationship he had with his father, who I think we can argue had a hand in the way he turned out to be.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah.
in May 1990, about 6 months after he murdered the Grissom family, Danny got into an argument with his dad. The argument escalated. And I think I read that James had just told his son, roll up your car windows because it's raining outside. And he flew off the handle.
Oh my
Danny,
goodness.
he was like, what? So the
Wow.
argument escalates and it keeps escalating. And Danny actually ended up shooting James in the stomach and head. James ended up surviving the attack, okay? Because Michael Myers always survived the attack too. So the bad guy
Right.
always survives. So
Mhm.
I think he lost an eye. Okay.
Wow.
Um, but Danny sure as hell did not stick around to apologize or nothing.
Hmm.
He dipped and he fled the city of Shreveport that same night, and he made his way to Gainesville, Florida, committing his usual thefts and robberies along the way in order to survive. So he's like, boop, boop, Louisiana, bye, rob, do this, do that. He that was his thing. Like that's how he was able to
Wow.
survive. He got caught. He wasn't great at it, but
Hell, I can't even steal a freaking paper bag or plastic bag, and he's over here just making his way down to Florida.
making my way to Florida. I
Oh
know.
my gosh.
So
Was it Louisiana? Florida, you said?
from Louisiana to Florida.
Okay, that's
Yeah. So, and it would be in Gainesville that Danny would earn the infamous nickname of the Gainesville Ripper.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So, remember how I said that the Grissom murders were not his last ones?
Mm-hmm.
Buckle up because it's going to get worse. It's worse. And I don't even go into graphic. I mean, I do, but I don't. So just on August 24th, 1990, Danny broke into an apartment where two University of Florida students, Christina Powell and Sonia Larson, lived. The girls caught Danny's eye while they were out shopping. So he followed them home. He waited in the dark outside until 3 a.m. Cold. And then broke into their apartment while they slept. He attacked, I think, okay, her name is spelled Sonja. And I know sometimes it's pronounced Sonia or
Right.
Sonja. I'm going to call her Sonia.
Yeah, it is Sonia, but
Okay, cool.
Probably it could be in this case it's Sanja.
I know. I apologize to anyone whose name is Sanja, but I think it's Sonia. So he attacks Sonia first while she's sleeping in her bed, tapes her mouth, and stabs her to death. He then moved on to Christina, where he bound her wrists, gagged her, cut her clothes off of her, and violently raped her before stabbing her as well. After he killed Christina, he went back to Sonia's room where he raped her dead body and then cut her nipples off. He took one of them as a sort of trophy and left the other there with her body. Before Danny left the apartment, he arranged their bodies in provocative positions like he had with Julie 6 months before. So this was turning into one of his signatures. Okay, so.
Right. Holy crap.
The next night, on August 25th, 1990, Danny broke into the home of 18-year-old college student Krista Hoyt using a screwdriver and a knife as his little break-in tools. I'm cold. Okay, so according to some articles that I read, he had peeked through her window a few days prior and liked what he saw and returned after he had murdered Christina and Sonia. I'm freaking out right now.
I'm closing my windows.
Yeah, I know. My blinds are tight. So he breaks in, but Krista, sorry, there's Christina was prior. This is Krista now. So he breaks into the apartment, but Krista's not home. You would think that he would just leave, right? But
God,
no.
please don't tell me he hides in a closet.
He straight up waited for her, I think, in her living room.
No, stop it right now.
I know. Stop. You're scaring me. So he waited for her. And when she got home, he caught her by surprise almost immediately and started choking her. So like she didn't have a second to react. Like that's my worst nightmare.
Yes.
When she stopped fighting and went limp, he put tape on her mouth, bound her wrists, and threw her on her bed. He then proceeded to brutally rape her from behind. And when he was done, he stabbed her in the back until she was dead. This is the worst one, but he wasn't finished. He then proceeded to actually, before I even finished that sentence, he actually, because there's multiple reports, but so I'm going to go with the one that I saw the most. He leaves. But when he gets to like where he was chilling or hiding out, I think in just a random campsite, he realizes that he doesn't have his wallet on him. So he thinks that he may have dropped it. So he goes back and he finds it. But he goes back to Krista's room and decapitates her.
Oh my
Okay.
gosh.
So he decapitates her and then he arranges her body so that it's sitting up on the edge of her bed and then puts her head on a shelf across the room facing her remains. Then he cut her nipples
Gosh.
off and placed them on the bed next to her. One creepy thing I want to note here is that Krista apparently reminded Danny of his ex-wife, the way she looked. And this particular attack was the most violent of all of the ones he had committed. He had
Mm-hmm.
committed. So I think it's safe to say he was not over his anger towards his ex.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. Shoot.
So meanwhile, news of the murders got out like almost immediately because
Mhm.
this was over the span of 2 days. And the news spread like wildfire across the college campus. The police, they were doing everything in their power to solve this case and put the town of Gainesville at ease, but people were tripping, and rightfully so. The students even started sleeping in groups so that they weren't as vulnerable. But despite all of their precautions, the so-called Gainesville Ripper would strike again. 2 days later, on August 27th, 1990, Danny finally completes his murderous spree. This time, he broke into the home of Manuel Taboada and
Mhm.
Tracy Pauls. Danny first attacked and killed Manuel so that he could focus on his intended target, Tracy. So the way I read it in a couple of articles was he goes in, sees Manuel sleeping, starts like he attacks him, but Manuel wakes up and like fights back. So Tracy hears the struggle and she runs like to see what's going on, right? By then, Danny overpowered Manuel and murdered
Mhm.
him. And then she gets to the room, sees Danny, and she's like, "It's you, isn't it?" And he's like, "Yeah, it's me." And then he pounces. He attacks her, brings her to her room, binds her arms, tapes her mouth, rapes her, and then stabbed her 3 times, ultimately killing her.
Mm.
He did not mutilate her body, but he did clean her and also posed her in a sexual manner. I think he got off on the shock that this site gave anyone who discovered the bodies. So,
Right. Exactly.
um, when
And
word
that so
got
that was Tracy.
this was Tracy. Yeah. With Manuel, he literally just kind of just eliminated him. He
Mhm.
wasn't interested, but he was like, why are you here? And got rid of
Yeah.
him.
Exactly. You're in my way.
Exactly. So when word got out about Manuel and Tracy's murders, mayhem ensued. The university was like, uh-oh. So they canceled classes for a week. And students straight up started walking around with baseball bats, bringing them everywhere so that they would be ready at a moment's notice.
Mhm.
No one went out alone during the day or night. Students were now sleeping in shifts. So they were in groups, right? But they were sleeping in shifts so that someone was awake at all times. By the end of August, thousands of students left school grounds, and around 700 of them never came back because they were terrified. I would be one of those peeps. Okay, I'd
That's for
buy
sure.
going to SF State.
Yes, exactly.
I'm
Oh my
leaving, I'm leaving
gosh.
the whole ass state of Florida. Okay. Like,
Yeah.
oh my God.
Ugh.
So police were scrambling. Okay. They were doing everything. They were doing everything they could to find this maniac, but unfortunately, they were unable to find enough evidence at the crime scenes. Danny, he was very methodical and made sure to get rid of any implicating evidence, or so he thought. He never left the duct tape on the body, so he made sure to always remove it from their mouths and wrists, and he
Mhm.
disposed of it in dumpsters to do away with his fingerprints, right? He also used cleaning products and vinegar on the dead bodies to remove traces of semen. He-
Oh,
yeah,
that's I was gonna ask you why vinegar?
I guess it was because it's
Hmm.
kind of like a cleaning product, a solvent or
Mhm.
whatever.
Yeah.
So even though there wasn't a ton of like physical evidence at this point, they did have blood that did not belong to any of the victims, blood that was type B. They also had the similarities: the murder weapon, body placement, the fact that the female victims, for the most part, were all female, right? Except for the
Mm-hmm.
two guys,
Right.
and all kind of resembled one another, petite brunettes. Another important and creepy clue was that the crime scenes were all close to wooded areas. And the killer would always enter through the back door. So, like, I guess the back doors faced the wooded areas. Ew, I'm never living out
Mm-hmm.
there.
Right.
Um,
Exactly. Oh yeah, see, and even if I go camping, well, I don't
uh-huh.
go camping, but if I were to go camping or you go to like an Airbnb
Yeah.
and it's in the woods,
Uh-huh.
I don't know why those places a lot of times don't have curtains,
They never do.
right?
Is that?
I don't know, because I straight up put a sheet up there. I don't care if I have to like, I don't know, go and buy like thumbtacks something. There's something going over my freaking windows. You
Oh,
don't know who's lying, like hanging out in the woods?
and also it's so freaking quiet in the woods. You can
Yeah,
hear a
no,
pin
no, no,
drop.
no. Mm-mm-mm. No, thank you.
Ugh.
Wow.
But yeah, so the killer would always enter through the back, and this is super important, like the placement of the homes. So
Mhm,
the day that Krista was murdered, police responded to a bank robbery about half a mile away from Krista's home.
mhm,
So we're just going to segue for just a minute. So
mhm,
when the teller was stuffing money into a bag to give to the person, to the robber, right? She slipped in like a red dye pack so that it would explode all over the money,
mhm,
like ink or something,
mhm,
and thus would be linked to that robbery. So smart
mm,
lady.
mhm,
That same night, an officer noticed a man walking into a wooded area. So he
mhm,
followed him to a campsite, and he sort of watched from a distance. The man left a bag at the site, and then he left again. He went the other way,
mhm,
and giving the officer a chance to scope the area out. So the officer not only found the stolen money covered in dye, he also found a cassette player with a tape inside, a gun, and a screwdriver. Now, you would think that the cops would, I don't know, listen to the tape.
right.
No.
Because that was my first question when you mentioned the tape. What's on it? Did he record these murders?
At this point, no one knows because no one pressed play. No. They would not listen to the tape until months later. Had they listened to the frickin' tape, they would have found their serial killer much sooner. But instead,
Mm,
they collected the evidence and put it aside. I don't want to be totally
wow.
douchey though,
Mhm.
because they probably didn't think this was the Gainesville Ripper at this point because of the gun. There
Okay, so
were no gun
maybe they were just
used.
assuming that was something he listened to.
Yeah,
He burned.
exactly. Maybe this was like, oh, this is sketch. We're gonna
Mhm,
bag it. Maybe it's linked to another crime. So at least they
mhm.
bagged it and they
Yeah,
took it, right? Okay.
true.
So and they worked their asses off
Mhm,
as is. So we're just gonna but
mhm,
let's jump back in.
mhm,
So the police did have two suspects. Okay. One of which was a student at the university named Edward Humphrey.
mhm,
And I think that's why they were not really tripping off of all this stuff.
mhm,
They were like, oh, it's a creepy guy living in a campsite, has a gun. We should probably bag it, save it for later. Because we have this suspect right
mhm,
now in our eyes. So Edward Humphrey. Edward Humphrey went to the school. Okay. The people that were murdered were students. He had a history of mental illness and had been arrested for attacking his grandmother. His grandmother did not die, but like he was violent.
mhm,
The police felt that he could possibly be violent enough to commit these crimes, but they would later have to rule him out. And we'll get into why in a minute.
mhm,
They also, now I couldn't find much information on the other suspect, just the fact that they had two suspects, but they
mhm.
cleared that other one. So I guess it was just like a momentary, like, yay, oh, okay. So
Right.
thankfully, Danny continued his hobby of armed robbery. And I say thankfully because he was again caught by the police on September 8th, 1990. However, when he was apprehended, the cops had no idea that he was the infamous Gainesville Ripper. So they were like,
Mm,
oh, we just have this douche. He likes to rob banks. Okay, we got him. Grocery
right.
stores. He's a loser.
Mhm,
Let's go back to Shreveport for a minute. So remember, there was a triple murder in Shreveport, and they were like head scratching, like, who, how, who did
Right.
this? Okay.
Exactly.
The police never stopped working that case. They were still working on this unsolved murder, and they had heard about the murders that took place in Gainesville. When they heard about the manner in which the students had been murdered, as well as how the bodies had been positioned, they knew it had to be the same man. Because if you recall, Julie had also been stabbed and placed in a sexual position.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. November 1991. So some time passed. The
Mm-hmm.
police caught a huge break when Cindy Jurassic called Crime Stoppers to report that Danny Rolling was quite possibly the elusive Gainesville Ripper. She had met Danny at her church in Shreveport years ago. So remember when he started going to a Pentecostal church?
Mm-hmm.
So that's where he met Cindy.
Mm-hmm.
So she developed a friendship with him along with her husband, Steven. So Danny would often go to their house and visit, just hang out. One night in August 1990, after the triple murder, Danny was visiting, and I guess she was in the other room. So I think the men were just shop talking or what talking shop, whatever men do.
Mm-hmm.
At some point during the evening, though, Stephen goes to find Cindy and tells her that Danny confessed to him that he had a problem and that he enjoyed sticking knives in people. Cindy kind of dismissed it at the time because, one, she didn't think that he had a violent bone in his body.
Mm-hmm.
Two, like, oh, he couldn't, no, like, it's fine. And when news of the murders broke out in Shreveport, she's like, had no reason to believe that it was her friend Danny. But when she heard about what happened in Gainesville, she thought about a comment that Danny had made to her previously, like in passing, that he was going to leave Shreveport one day and go live somewhere warm where the girls are beautiful and he could lie in the sun all day long. So something inside of her said Danny's somehow involved. She just
Wow.
felt it in her gut. So she called. With Cindy's tip, not to mention the similarities between the triple murders in Shreveport and the murders in Gainesville, the police turned their attention to Danny, who was in jail for his latest armed robbery. They took a blood sample and discovered that he had type B blood, the same type
Mm-hmm.
as the suspect in the Shreveport and Gainesville murders. Ding,
Wow.
ding, ding, ring a ding, ding. Danny Rolling's DNA was a match to the DNA found at the Gainesville murder scenes, and this was enough to charge him with murder. Police also tested the tools that they found at the campsite after Krista's murder and realized that it was a match to Danny's DNA. And they finally played the tape where he said
Finally.
his full name. He said his full freaking name. I think he gave his social security on that tape. They had him hook, line, and
Wow.
sinker. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So, November 15th, 1991, Danny is charged with 5 counts of first-degree murder in connection with the 5 students' deaths in Florida and faced the death penalty. But before his murder trial started, he was actually convicted for the bank robberies and was soon sent to Florida State Prison. While he was there, he met another inmate by the name of Bobby Lewis, who was on death row for killing a drug dealer. They struck up a sort of weird friendship, and Danny apparently told Bobby every last detail of his rapes and murders. Bobby wrote this all down and turned it over to investigators on the case because at the time they had DNA, they had, all the stuff. Like he's the guy, but he
Mm-hmm.
still hadn't admitted it. So now he's
Gotcha.
in jail and he's telling this man, I did it. This is how I
Mm-hmm.
did it. This is how you know I did it. Because I
Mm-hmm.
know like the color of the wallpaper. Like I was there. I
Right.
took her head. I know what book I placed. Like he knew everything.
Mm-hmm.
So Bobby wrote this all down and turned it over to the investigators on the case. The investigators wanted to confirm the details with Danny himself and arranged a meeting. Danny said, I will only meet with you if my friend, my bestie Bobby, comes with me. And Bobby, they said, okay, whatever. So like
Mm-hmm.
Bobby was there and acted like his I don't know, lawyer or just his spokesperson.
Mhm.
And it was at this meeting that Danny admitted to being the Gainesville Ripper. He did not admit to being responsible for the triple murder in Shreveport. And one other
Mm.
thing, he tried blaming his alter ego, Gemini, for the murders at this meeting and at his trial. Gemini made me do it, but no one was buying it.
Wow.
Yeah. On February 15th, 1994, 4 years after killing the 5 college students, Danny's murder trial finally began. The families of the victims were all there to represent their loved ones. And Danny's defense was, of course, all of the years of the abuse turned him into the monster that he became. They
Mhm.
had witnesses testify to the abuse, including Claudia, his mom, who, when asked if her
Mm.
husband was abusive towards Danny, she responded, "Yeah, sure." And then went on to describe the violent abuse she witnessed. Yeah, he held him up
Wow.
by his neck against the wall and left finger indents on his neck.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Goodness.
The defense team also tried the insanity defense, or rather, tried to prove that he had a personality disorder and had
Mhm.
several psychiatrists testified to the same fact, but it did not work. And
Hmm.
thankfully, the trial did not last too long because on April 20th, 2 months later, Danny was found guilty and sentenced to death for the 5 murders. And he
Wow.
was executed by lethal injection on October 25th, 2006 in Florida. Before he was executed, he finally admitted to the being responsible for the murders in Shreveport. So at least there's that.
Mhm.
Um, a total of 47 people witnessed the execution of Danny Rolling, which was double the capacity of the viewing room. His last meal consisted of a lobster tail served with butter, butterfly shrimp with cocktail sauce, a baked potato with sour cream and butter, strawberry cheesecake, and sweet tea.
Hmm.
While on his deathbed, 52-year-old Danny sang childhood songs to himself, I guess to find peace, before his execution.
Hmm.
That in a nutshell, and that's a tight nutshell, is the case
Mhm.
of the Gainesville Ripper. But before we conclude, I want to ask you that question. Did this case remind you of anything?
Um,
5 college students
oh, well, college students and like like a murder
and
serial
knife.
killer.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, the night, like Scream.
Exactly. This case, Danny Rolling, inspired the Scream franchise. So,
No way. I didn't even know it
screenwriter,
was like,
yeah,
wow.
screenwriter Kevin Williamson actually lived in Florida during the Gainesville murders, and he used it as his inspiration. And the first Scream film, as you know, was released in 96, only
Mhm.
6 years after the murders. And the victims in the story were a group of college students.
Yes. And yeah, because man, they hopped on that like that.
Yeah, they did. And that's how people felt. Just what you just said. Exactly. People were like, you're trying to capitalize on people's heartache.
Mm-hmm.
But
Hey,
yeah,
people do it all the time, whether it be that or someone writing a book, God knows what. But
exactly.
whew, that was heavy.
I know. Yeah.
It was heavy because of how he did it, like the cutting off the nipples part.
And it's
Ew.
with serial killers, it's like they are known to often take trophies.
Mm-hmm.
They're known to show up at search parties. They're known to show up at funerals of their victims and act like a, you know, caring person.
Mm-hmm.
The body parts, and yeah, like there's other murders that I want to talk about. And like it's just the way they like there's people that keep like dead bodies under their
Mm-hmm.
floorboards
Yeah.
and research ways to preserve it. It's like people like the mind is a trippy place.
Yeah, it is. And it's just like, because I looked him up and he looks so normal. I just wanted to
Exactly.
see a photo of him, so I just looked up his name real quick and I'm like,
He looks like just a guy who works in advertising. Or
yeah,
he looks like he works at H&R Block. Like
yes, exactly. And drives like an Oldsmobile,
exactly because
and carries a briefcase.
I mean, look at Ted Bundy. I mean,
Yeah.
serial killers are like literally the guy next door.
And what's crazy is that to me, actually being able to kill anybody without anybody catching you. Like his first murder went off like without a hitch. You know what I mean? Like a whole freaking family,
A
pretty
whole
much.
family.
You know, I mean, like, and nobody, he was able to just walk away, you know? And then it continues. And each time it's like he can do all this without being caught. And
Insane, right?
literally, he didn't even get caught. It was just, it happened. It so happened that someone put two and two together by something he had said to her husband. And she had thought of things that he had told her. But if
Hmm.
she hadn't even, really even paid attention to that or kind of like brushed it off, he might still be, you know, dormant and living his life on the beach, still watching the beautiful ladies walk by,
Exactly.
and that's so disturbing. So disturbing. And he like literally like gutted them, like the way he's like vicious.
Yeah.
I mean, and it's crazy because like you would think that I don't know, his ex-wife must have did a number on him as far as leaving, like you said. But then when you think about it, all the stuff that his father did, though.
The thing is like he worked through his pain
Mhm.
by inflicting it
On
and
others.
and the level, like you can just again, I'm not excusing his behavior at all, but had his father maybe loved him,
Hmm.
not abused him, had he had a stable mother figure,
Yeah.
stable home, he might have had a different shot at life.
Yeah, it's so sad, like, and it's true how powerful the mind is. I mean, not to, you know, like change subjects or anything, but there was a story not similar, but maybe it was kind of actually. It was, I don't know when it was, but I think it was maybe like earlier this year, maybe during Christmas. And I don't know if you saw it because it was heavy on social media, about a little girl. I think it was a girl who stabbed her brother, her young brother, and they had it on, camera where the police go to the house, and literally she comes down the stairs and they're like, okay, and they know it's her because she's already confessed. But she's like, I stabbed my brother. And, fast forward, they kind of say, okay, what did you do? How did you do this? And she's explaining step by step everything she did. But the crazy part is when they get to the hospital or to the jail, the mom's like, what did you do? Like, why did you do this? And she's like, it's crazy. Like the parents don't really see what they've done to the child because she's like, oh, she was so good. She would never act like this. Like,
Ugh,
she loved her, but every now and then, she had some issues, but it was nothing that I think she would have done, this measure of, violence towards her brother. But
exactly.
it's so crazy though how parents sometimes don't realize. Like it's crazy to me because for me with my own daughter, I'm over there looking and analyzing everything she says and does, you know?
Yeah,
And I feel like there is still a lot of parents that kind of dismiss their children's behavior and don't even bother to worry about if they are um, displaying mental issues or anger issues or whatever. They just kind of brush it off.
yeah,
And I feel like if, I don't know, even if you have an abusive husband, why are you staying there?
exactly. that I can't answer for them, but it's hard not when there's little babies involved, it's hard not to judge. I mean, I'm sure like ask that question.
It is hard because it's just like, and I know parenting is so hard, and I know that people are working and they're busy, or if they're single parent, like I get it. But, you know, a lot could be revealed when you talk to the parents and how uninvolved they have been, or
Hmm.
even just like you said, showing love.
Exactly.
Like if you look at a lot of people in the future that just have just normal like depression problems, or just even anxiety or anger issues, it's a lot of times it's because their parents didn't show them love and attention.
Hmm.
And it's not even just towards their parents. It's like even like with siblings, how they, like I can even look at like my dad and his brother, and how in the past, like they really weren't taught how to love each other. So as they grew up, I mean, they were twins, but they weren't very close. And I mean, you hear stories about how twins are inseparable, and like, you know, one gets a pain and the other feels it, and my dad and his brother weren't like that, but my dad also relates it to the fact that growing up, they didn't have that kind of love that normal families did. Like they didn't learn how to express themselves or talk about things, stuff like that. And it's crazy how your childhood really defines who you are and what you're going to be. You know?
Definitely.
Question though, how do you feel about, and I can't remember if we talked about this like in the beginning of Crime Talk with Steph, but um how do you feel about the death penalty?
I'm split because I want that. I lean more towards life in prison. And if
Mhm.
you, I feel like the biggest form of torture is solitary confinement. So I feel
Mhm.
like that is more appropriate than obviously general pop where you could work out and have perks and watch TV. And I
Mhm.
feel like it's way worse than being put to death because it's lethal injection. You're not like putting on a helmet and being electrocuted and tortured to death.
Mhm.
You're not shot from the ankles up,
Mhm.
so it's the easy way out in my opinion. So I
Mhm.
lean more towards throw their ass in solitary confinement.
Mhm. Yeah. Yeah, I think for me it depends on like I feel like if they, that's one thing I don't understand, is when people have confessed, they did it. I mean, there's evidence that they have done it.
Hmm.
Like to me, you know, I always say like let the victims' families have at it and let them get you know what I mean at this point, right? And let them just, when for sure they have committed the crime, because our taxpayers are paying for them to just sit there in jail, and a lot of them, like when you look at like what is it, Manson and all these people, like they really have no souls or remorse,
None.
and they don't, like, things don't bother them, and
No.
it's like the fact that they act so dismissed and like
And laugh.
unbothered. Yeah, it just, they feel it gets a rise out of people, which it does. And so for me, those type of people, because the chances are they're, especially if it's in California, they're never going to see the death chair, or
No.
they're never going to see their punishment. So for me, I feel like just end them, you
Yeah.
know.
Oh, I
but
agree.
but when it comes to certain people that have done things, sometimes you have to, especially for crimes of kids and stuff, put
Oh,
them and let them rot
put them in a vat of
and let them
boiling
think,
oil.
yes, they should be suffering. They should not be treated like, they're over at the Bellagio, prison style,
Exactly.
you know? Oh, wow. Fantastic job, Steph. Really, for real. This is a good one. And actually, I never knew that Scream was like even part of like a whole background story. Like,
Yeah.
that's
And you
insane.
know how much we love Scream. Like I watch that every year.
Yeah. Yeah, for real. No, it's, yeah, this is freaking phenomenal. Oh,
Yeah.
wow. That's so sad though, but very, very interesting. I don't want to say I loved it. We always say this all the time. But it's one of those things that's just like, wow, it's pretty, very riveting.
Thank you, Neen. And thank you for your, as always, your just brilliant. Wait, I was going to say something in French, but I lost the word. Witty repartee.
Oh, thank you. I
And just your
try.
insight, as
I
always.
try. Oh man, no, that's really good. Wow. Yeah, it'll make me yeah, it's creepy. Like, see, my windows. I'm
Uh-huh.
right in front
Yeah.
of
I'm like,
windows
oh,
and
I'm all the way downstairs.
wow. No, but fantastic job, Steph. Thank you so much for this.
Thank
Really
you,
appreciate it.
Neen. As I mean, again, I don't want to say I had a blast as always, but I do enjoy talking to you about crime and
Hmm.
whatnot.
Definitely. Kind of it opens, there could always be, I don't want to say a message at the end of this, but you know, pay attention to your kids.
Hmm.
Don't put them in situations where you never know what the future's going to be like. Like you
Exactly.
can't, I
Just
don't
love your
know.
kids, damn it.
Yes,
If you don't want to
exactly.
be a parent, there's fire departments where you could drop off your kid. Like, I just will
Mhm.
never, and don't even get me started because then I'm going to go like on a rant. I can't. I literally. So,
Yeah.
yes, love your kids. And if you're unfit to be a parent, do something about it.
Yeah, for sure. On exactly, just like you said, if you ever get pregnant and you don't want a baby, have the baby if if it's too late, right? Or whatever, I don't know. Use your own discretion, okay?
Exactly.
And you could drop the baby off at a fire department.
Exactly. No judgment. There it is.
Yeah.
Goodbye.
Yeah, I don't because yeah, that's another rabbit hole we could
Yeah.
talk about another day.
And I get to, oh, it just, that's the one thing. Mm, yes.
Yes,
But
I agree.
on that note, everybody have a fantastic Friday. Have a
Yes.
fabulous weekend.
Uh,
And without further ado, Neen, we'll catch you on the flip side.
oh wait, real
But
quick before we catch you on the flip side, Sinead O'Connor died.
I know I didn't want to
And
mention it
I
tonight. It
know,
breaks my
I
heart.
know, but it's crazy because remember one of our episodes, a couple episodes back, we were talking about that, and for some reason, I had thought she had already passed away.
Oh my God, that's right. You confused her with Dolores. That's
I
why.
did.
No, but it's
Not
just
that
proof.
that's funny, but I was just like, oh my gosh, when I read that, I was like, that's kind of trippy.
It's just
So,
sad because it's proof that you can die from a broken heart. It's just,
yes,
yeah.
absolutely. So, just on that note, you
Sinead,
know,
may you rest,
yes, for
and
sure.
nothing compares to you or you, Neen.
Oh, thank you.
And on that note, everybody, catch you on the flip side.
Oh, yeah. Peace out, buddies.
You're so cute.